Hello, everybody. Welcome to my Boomer Buddies podcast, where we tell it like it was and is. I'm your host, Rick Reed. Today, my co-host is a longtime friend. In fact, I've known him the longest of anybody. We were in diapers together. It sounds weird, but we were. Our moms would walk us around the block in the strollers. Our friendship goes back that far. I want to introduce to you now my co-host, Jeff Bajan. Jeff, welcome to my Boomer Buddies podcast, and welcome to being a Boomer Buddy.
Well, thank you very much, Rick. I will tell you it's an absolute honor to be here today. I've been watching the episodes, and it's so cool that you've done this for boomers. Love the content and look forward to a conversation.
All right, let's give a little more background to Jeff. Jeff also loves music like I do. We grew up just a few months apart. You have a birthday coming up, and I had mine in April. We're 69, we'll be 69. And I just think of all the memories I have with you. It's just crazy. So he is a perfect fit for my Boomer Buddies podcast. Jeff, why don't you tell everybody out there that's listening or watching what we're going to cover today?
Well, this is a special episode. We're covering the band, the Hollies, an early 60s band. And I think what's interesting when Rick and I were talking about this subject matter is Rick and I are middle boomers. Like we're 10 years in, and then there's 10 years after. And I think the Hollies represent the early boomer years from a rock and roll and evolutionary music scene very adroitly, and look forward to an in-depth discussion.
Yeah, the Hollies are one of my favorite bands. Down the road, I'm going to do an episode on the British invasion, and they are proud members of that group. And today we're going to touch on it, have a conversation about the Hollies. They started in 1962. They had some key members retire and leave. But just now, like a couple of days ago, Tony Hicks and Bobby Elliott, the two last classic members, they retired from going on the road. So not many bands left out there. The one that comes to mind is the Stones. They're still together. Anyway, 62 it all started. And the classic band lineup, I'm just going to mention, Jeff, to remind the people out there or educate them. It was Alan Clark. He was the main lead vocals, and he played some guitar. Long Cool Woman, he played the guitar on that riff, classic riff. He retired from performing in 2000. Graham Nash, very popular for many reasons, and you can add to anything I say here, Jeff. He had vocals and rhythm guitar, the high soaring harmonies. That
Absolutely.
was him. He left in December of 1968 for a few reasons. Number one, the Hollies weren't accepting some of the songs he had written. They kind of poo-pooed it, and that was frustrating to him. And the road that the Hollies and the producers were taking was to just rehash like Dylan songs. They wanted to do a whole album on Bob Dylan, and that didn't sit well because Graham Nash wanted to expand and not just have pop hits. And and what sealed the fate was he went to California, and he was at Joni Mitchell's apartment in Laurel Canyon, and he met with Stephen Stills and David Crosby. They struck up doing a song, and the harmony was magical. You know that story. Go ahead.
Absolutely. The Graham Nash thing. Yeah, one of the things that I think is intriguing about the Hollies is they did a lot of covers. And they really took other people's songs and made them their own. And while that was a huge part of their allure, it also, if you're a musician, I guess that could get kind of old. And evidently that's what happened with Graham. And then, you mentioned Joni, but yes, there was California chicks involved. And why not move to California?
Eventually, the Hollies started writing, and Nash was writing with Tony Hicks, lead guitar and vocals. He usually did the low end on the harmonies. Fantastic, underrated guitar player, by the way.
Yes.
And then, of course, Alan Clark. And then Eric Haydock was the bass player until he left in 1966. And then Bernie Calvert came in from 1966, and he was there for quite a few years. And Bobby Elliott, the drummer.
Yeah, Elliott was the drummer.
Great drummer.
Mm-hmm.
And then after Graham Nash left to seek his fortune and fame in California to become Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and sometimes Young, Terry Sylvester came in and did the parts that Graham Nash did. So that's the classic lineup right there. And after Alan Clark left, they've had a few lead singers to take his place. But
Right.
it's a great group. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2010.
Yep,
So,
2010. Yep.
well, one of the things we want to do, Jeff, as you know,
Yep.
and audience out there, is we're going to name our top 5 Hollies songs. It's subjective. In the comments, give us what you like. But I mean, we could change our list every day if we wanted. The way we feel today, we're going to go through now and list our top 5. We'll alternate. Jeff, go ahead. We're going to start with you. And I'm going to start from the least favorite of the 5.
I'm going to take a different tact. My top 5 are based on musically what I think of the Hollies were doing, and then where they might have been going, because I do think they're pivotal in that whole change over from pop to more rock and roll to what ultimately became the 70s rock scene that you and I were deeply immersed in. So I'm going to start with Carrie Ann. Carrie Ann, my number 1, precisely because Nash played a huge role in that song, from not only from singing and a writing perspective, but also the guitar riff, just what he was doing. And the way he wrote then leads me to think of, like, for instance, Carry On, years later with Crosby, Stills, and Nash. So I start with Carrie Ann, classic.
All right. Carrie Ann, it's on my list. I won't go in order. If I have one on there and you do too, I'll just
Okay.
go on with it. But
That works.
Carrie Ann, I just loved Tony Hicks as a guitar, bong, bong. It sounded like a rubber band. And it's very nostalgic. I can remember being down at the West Medicine Lake Community Club. I know most of the world that's listening don't know that place, but it was a hangout for me, real close to my neighborhood. Played baseball down there and all that. But anyway, I was playing on the monkey bars and I had my transistor radio and this came on. And now, what is this? And it just caught me from right there. That was written by Clark, Nash, and Hicks, and it was a 1967 hit. And they wanted to write something that was solid. As you had mentioned earlier, Jeff, they took other people's songs and made them hits, and they're good songs, but they wanted to do their own stuff and be accepted for that. And it hit number 3 in the UK, number 9 in the US and Canada.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's the first use of steel pans or steel drums, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, the drum riff.
It was the solo in the song. And it's funny whenever you'd see a video of them and they're doing it live. Well, that's a tape, the background.
Yeah, they don't have that.
It was taped. So they're just kind of looking at each other like, hey.
The mystery man is playing.
Exactly. And what it is, according to on Wikipedia, I looked it up, it's a shy tribute to Mary Ann Faithfull. They said Carrie Ann. Pretty good. So
I'm curious, where did you have that in your list of top 5?
Number 3.
Okay.
Yeah, it's number 3. Absolutely love it because viewers and listeners that are familiar with me know that I'm a sentimental guy and I remember everything from back then. When I heard a song, it just gets embedded as to what I was doing, how I was feeling. Was the weather good, bad? And it was just a perfect day. It was in the summer that I remember hearing it. Great song. Great pick.
Love it. Okay. Now you got to go first.
Okay, I'll go. My number 5 is On a Carousel.
Yes.
It's another Clark, Nash, and Hicks hit. It hit number 11 in the U.S., number 4 in the U.K., and number 7 in Canada. And Jeff, in case you're wondering why I'm mentioning these other countries, guess what? I have viewers and listeners there.
I love it.
And I like to thank you all for watching and listening. That's the first A-side that he sang lead, he being Nash, and Clark filled in with the other 2 verses. It's a wonderful, nostalgic hit, and I have it at number 5, but it could be just about anywhere on there. The harmonies are fantastic, and they're just perfectly done, as usual. How about you? What's your next one?
So it's funny that you mentioned harmonies and the soaring harmonies that the Hollies had, because my next one is Look Through Any Window. And the reason Look Through Any Window is because they had modeled themselves, or so I've read, on the Everly Brothers. And with the duo singing, Clark and Nash, you get that soaring harmony. So Look Through Any Window, and all of these are just classic Hollies. I didn't do the research. Those of you who knew me in school know that this is true. I'm just winging it. But so I don't know where they are on the charts, but I do know that the Hollies didn't chart that great in the United States. They really charted well in England, and they charted well in Canada and some of the other more cosmopolitan areas of the world at the time. But that's my number 2 choice, Look Through Any Window.
All right, Jeff. I had that as my number 1.
Whoa!
And
Brilliant.
there's reasons why the guitar work is so good. Tony Hicks, just fantastic. It was a song that was written by Graham Gouldman, and you'll remember him for 10cc.
Yes. Yes.
And there's so much about him. He, in his early years, was a major songwriter. And I've got a little thing on here. I'm just going to find it and share it.
Yeah, please do.
I should say he also co-wrote it with Charles Silverman. But Graham Gouldman, he wrote a string of songs, many of them million sellers between 1965 and 67 alone. Here's some of them. He wrote For Your Love, Heartful of Soul, and Evil-Hearted You for the Yardbirds.
Mm-hmm.
I love those 3 songs, Jeff.
Absolutely.
And you think, okay, that's a pretty cool band to record my song.
Was that early Yardbirds with Jeff Beck?
That was 65 to 67. So For Your Love, believe it or not, Eric Clapton, he was more of a blues guy. He left because that song was poppy,
Right.
Isn't that? And that's your angle in looking at the Hollies in this episode.
That is true.
Graham Gouldman also wrote Look Through Any Window, like we just mentioned, for the Hollies, and Bus Stop for the Hollies.
Yep. Honorable mention on my list.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We're going to do honorable mentions. I always do. In other episodes, we've called it the Mount Rushmore, but I'm not officially doing it for this one. But he wrote Listen People, No Milk Today, and East West for Herman's Hermits.
Oh my.
Do you remember those songs?
I remember vaguely on the Hermits. That's amazing.
And Graham Gouldman wrote Pamela, and Impossible Years for Wayne Fontana, British Invasion.
Mm-hmm.
That's just to mention a few. So Tony Hicks had a really good ear for finding songs and bringing them to the Hollies, and they worked their magic on them. So I just wanted to say Look Through Any Window is also, to me, I did an episode previously, Jeff, the perfect pop song to me is Look Through Any Window.
Okay.
Quincy Stringham, who I mention quite often, he's a guest on the show, and he's from the first few years of the Boomer Buddy era.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
He's the one that went to Woodstock as a teenager. His perfect pop song is a song called I'll Feel a Whole Lot Better by the Byrds.
The Byrds. Mm.
Yeah. That's a perfect pop song to him, and I can't argue with that.
Yeah. Yeah. We grew up with so many pop songs that it's hard to, equivocate. Yeah, I would argue Bus Stop was pretty good too, mainly because, it evokes images of, how do we actually talk to members of the opposite sex when we're younger?
So Look Through Any Window was my number 1 pick for many reasons. It hit number 32 in the U.S., which goes to your point about they didn't catch on in the U.S., as easily. They were very, worldwide acclaimed. They had a lot of number 1 hits over there. They never hit number 1 in the U.S., by the way. Little tidbit,
I know.
Which is crazy. Number 2.
They came close. They came close with my next choice.
Yeah. Well, just think of how many bands had 1 hit, and they were fortunate to have 1 hit. They had so many hits, the Hollies.
Yes.
In the U.S. even. Well, let's go to your next pick, shall we?
I mean, you and I both know what it's going to be. And for several reasons. Number 1, the year and the place where the Hollies were when they did this song and released it was after Graham left. And so they needed a boost, and they got it with Long Cool Woman in a Black Dress. And just the other day, I was listening to the lyrics, which if you haven't taken the time to really understand the lyrics, people, you need to, because it's a pretty simple song, but a little, a little devilish in the lyrics of Long Cool Woman. But Rick knows why we love that song. It was right there when we were in that, 1971, 14 years
Yep,
old,
yep, yep.
and the Hollies changed. Like, that's not the Hollies song. They used a little reverb. They played a little bit in the studio with it. And that is my choice.
That's a good choice. That's an honorable mention for me because it's so obvious that I wanted to pull in something a little more obscure. That's an FBI agent going into this undercover bar, and it's like a film noir. Do you like those
Yeah.
old movies, the black and white, with the tough guy, tough talk, and the women were always, just mysterious.
A pair of 45s.
Yeah,
I'll
exactly.
let your imagination run wild.
Exactly. Well, that song, the FBI agent goes in this underground bar and sees this long, cool woman in a black dress singing, and he was smitten right away. This FBI
Yes,
agent.
sir.
That's the background on it. Also, Alan Clark, he did that on his own because he was
Yes,
leaving the
that's
group
right.
for a little bit.
That's
and
right.
They put it on a Hollies album, and he's playing the guitar, that rock and roll
Yeah.
riff.
It's a
and
great guitar riff.
It's very Creedence Clearwater like, and I think John Fogerty. I don't know if he sued. I don't know if that happened at all, but I don't know if he did. But he
did not sue. Yeah, I read up on that. He did not sue and gave credit and said, yeah, that I was going for that kind of swampy vibe, that swampy bluesy kind of vibe, which is why it was on my list because it's such a departure. But it was a shot in the arm because I think, Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it hit number 2 in the U.S.
That was the highest charting song, Long Cool Woman, which surprises me. It's a great song and everything, but it was so basic. I thought something else would have hit number 1.
I don't disagree with that.
And I'll give my next one if you're done.
You go, baby.
And because this will tie into what I'm talking about. My number 2 song is "He Ain't Heavy." Is my brother, which the era of Vietnam.
Yep.
It goes way back to a Scottish girl was carrying her younger brother. I'm not going to do the accent, but are you having trouble there with carrying him? And she said, "He's not heavy. He's my brother." And there I tried the accent. He's not heavy.
You did well. You did well.
And then later on, Boys Town, where the orphans went, that they have a statue for that. 2 boys. It's not heavy. He's my brother. And of course, I think of my brothers when it came out. It brought me to tears back then.
Yeah.
Little knucklehead. He isn't heavy. He's my brother. So emotionally, it really tied to that one. And I'll tell you how it did here and elsewhere. It was written by Bob Russell.
Yep.
Bob Scott. Oh, you read up on this.
It's on my list too.
Good. Well, then you can go into that next. But Bob Russell and Bob Scott, they met 3 times.
Yes.
And Russell died. So
we don't want to go there, but yeah.
It just shows that it was meant to be that they got together and wrote that classic song. Yeah, that was in 1969, almost 1970. And Elton John played piano on that song.
That's right.
Little tidbit.
Little studio musicianship there.
Yeah. UK hit number 3, number 7 in the US. So He Ain't Heavy is my brother. And of course, in Vietnam, a lot of the soldiers, Marines, took that on as a meaningful song for them.
Yeah, it became kind of an anthem. And it was on my list. And for several reasons, the soaring harmonies, they just fly. And then it's got that soul kind of vibe, maybe a little Tom Jones in there. And so, for those reasons, that just really, and it didn't sound like the early Hollies. Again, evolution in music is all things. And that's what they were doing with these songs, whether they wrote them or they didn't.
Yeah, well said. And that song, it kind of put into where we were too in 1969, 70, Jeff, where we were starting to get more independent minded as little humans, right?
That's true.
And it's not bubblegum pop anymore, right? It's something serious and something you can feel in your heart.
Yes.
It's numbnut kid anymore. Well, a little bit, but you started to change. This equates to change for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a more mature song than Bus Stop, right? Yet both still have the same bones. The thing about the Hollies that amazes me is they stayed together for so long. And you can play a Hollies record and they may not know the name, the Hollies, but they know that they've heard not only that band, but they've heard numerous songs. So I like the fact that they maintained that, but they also matured and changed at the same time and took on a little more risk than just the pop risk that they took in the early mid 60s.
Right. You got all these pressures to get hits. And
Yeah.
that's why Graham Nash left, because
That's right.
he was growing apart musically. Yeah. And
That's right.
I have one more. You have one more too?
I have one more. Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Look, it's not a Boomer Buddies podcast without a little yacht rock, in my opinion. And to me,
I love yacht rock.
To me, and I love yacht rock as well. To me, this one, The Air That I Breathe, classic yacht rock. And I don't hate it. I just think it's just a fun song. Comes on the radio, you start humming along, you start singing.
Well,
that's what the radio's for.
That soaring guitar lead by Tony Hicks. Man, it just, it's them. It was a different song. Alan Clark's lead on that vocally. He's got his own sound.
Totally underrated as a singer. People didn't, he didn't talk about Alan Clark, you just knew his voice from the Hollies.
Right. Well, how about this about Alan Clark? I, Robot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
When I Break Down.
Alan Parsons Project.
I first heard that. I had the album. It was given to me. My cousin was a warehouse manager at Pickwick Distributing.
Oh, wow.
He gave it to me, and I didn't know much about Alan Parsons at that time. He's a big deal in the music industry.
Big deal.
I heard that song, and I went, that's Alan Clark. It's got it. So distinctive and talented. And then he ended up retiring from performing in 2000 because his voice was going. Did you ever watch the Hall of Fame ceremony for the Hollies?
I did not. I did not. I'll have to hit that.
Yeah, they performed. They didn't have Terry Sylvester up there.
Okay. But
for some reason,
he was inducted, though.
Oh, yeah, he was inducted. But they performed and they were, they snubbed him for some reason, and I don't know. I've been trying to find out. But Graham Nash was up there, and Alan Clark, and they had Maroon 5.
Oh, the lead singer?
Yeah.
Lead singer. Turn your chair on The Voice. Golly. Married a supermodel. Why can't I think of his name? I'll think of it. It'll pop in my head.
That's so boomer, Jeff. I do that all the time.
It is.
It'll come to me.
We're out of context. I've been doing all this research on the 60s. Now we suddenly shifted to the 2000s.
But anyway, he went up there to fill in for Alan Clark. Adam
Levine.
Yes. Okay, let's do that.
There you go.
Yeah, they didn't have Sylvester come up. He tried to get up there, and I think he ended up grabbing a tambourine or something, but they snubbed him, obviously. Oh. They had Adam Levine sing Alan Clark's part because his voice was shot, which is sad. Prolific singer and have that happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was cool that they made it. For years, I said, why do you have Patti Smith in there? Why do you have Madonna in there? Let's put the Hollies in there. So, okay. Well, I like that pick a lot.
Again, it's this evolution of the time, right? So you've mentioned Tony Hicks's guitar. If you think about the guitar, and then fast forward to 1971, 72, 73, and, Seals and Crofts and bands like that lead with that guitar. And then, a couple of years later, Boston. It all comes from that evolution of what bands like the Hollies were doing. And then, of course, some of the song choices with Graham, and then Graham going to Crosby, Stills, Nash. By the way, my French Bulldog's name is Nash.
Nice,
nice. Close to my heart there.
Nice.
But that's what I loved about when you said, hey, let's talk about the Hollies. That's how I view the Hollies, is this early group that just hung on and lived through all the change in the record and recording industry. And that's pretty freaking cool. Plus, we lived our lives listening to that soundtrack.
With our choices, we didn't go early necessarily.
No,
Like
no.
Just One Look, Doris Troy made that popular over here. And then I'm Alive. They had some really good poppy songs.
Yep.
And then all the way to The Air That I Breathe. I love
I was
that
gonna
you're a
say-
student of their evolution.
Well, what I was going to say about that is just, I don't know about you, but I wasn't listening maybe to the radio at the ballpark quite as much, but I didn't hear a lot of that stuff until maybe later in like 65, 66. And then at that point, I started listening to like Creed's Clearwater Revival. And that's when you started to hear the Hollies, or I started listening. So I didn't know some of the early stuff, like some of the older boomers that watch your show. I'm hoping that they'll comment on this and interject their own list and say, here's what I remember well, and pop in on that and get on Rick's page and let him have that love, because I know we'd love to hear it.
Perfect, Jeff. Good lead in. Go ahead, share, like, comment, subscribe, because a lot of people that watch this, they don't subscribe, and it really would help the algorithms if you do all those things. And if you like this show, it's not that hard to share it and turn other people onto it. And Jeff and I would love to see comments on this show, this episode.
I'm going to share it, Rick, with all my hopefully some of the posse here in Richmond, Virginia, and also I meant to, I don't know, mention it, but I still have a box of your original board game, For the Record. I still have it, and for all those of you who don't know me, I'm famous because I'm actually in the board game. As a wrong answer.
Yeah, I have multiple choices, and it's kind of a good thing, I think, to be a wrong answer, because people all over that buy the game or bought the game, it's out of print now, they guessed Jeff Bajan, you know?
Yep.
And then they're probably going, who the heck is Jeff Bajan, you know?
And if you want to follow me, by the way, my handle on Instagram is One Hit Wonder.
I didn't know that.
Rick, that's an inside joke for Rick.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you, Jeff, shouting that out. The game For the Record, there's a 50s, 60s, 70s edition, and there's an 80s and 90s edition that my wife and I produced. And it's basically my brain in a box. I had to verify all the stuff that I put in there, but it was fun coming up with wrong answers like Jeff. And a lot of my friends are in there and family. And
that's right.
When I was out demonstrating the game, the 50s, 60s, 70s edition, I had a lot of requests for an 80s, 90s edition. And what I did for marketing was I got their names and emails, and I said, I'll put you in the 80s, 90s version, and you can be a wrong answer. So what does that do? I email them and they go buy the game.
I love it. I love it. Very good.
Anyway, I have one more song I want to mention.
Please do.
And I've been out of order since the first question, by the way, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. Graham Nash left, and in 1969, the replacement was Terry Sylvester, and he was with, I think, the Swinging Blue Jeans. And
yes, that's right.
I can't remember the other one right now. But anyway, he was known in other groups, and he joined, and he came in, and those are big shoes to fill with Graham Nash leaving. And so this song featured him. You want to know what it is?
I do. I'm sitting on the edge of my seat.
Well, my last pick here features Terry Sylvester filling in for Graham Nash, those big shoes. And it was a song called Sorry, Suzanne.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And what it was kind of poppy again. And again, I keep going back to Tony Hicks's guitar. It sounded like a Ricky Nelson song guitar part from back in the late 50s. It just hooked me. And their harmonies are sky high. I'm not going to say, that they didn't miss Graham Nash, but Terry Sylvester, he carried himself pretty well in that song. And others. He Ain't Heavy. He's My Brother. His vocals were very, very, very good. So I put that on there. And Sorry, Suzanne, I got to mention who wrote it, Jeff Stevens and Tony McCauley. And that was from 1969.
So 69.
The transition from Nash to Sylvester. And it was number 3 in the UK, number 56 in the US. And you're like, well, that's not very good. Well, that goes back to Jeff's point. They didn't have huge success necessarily in the U.S., but they were steady and they had enough hits to keep their fans happy.
They were on the radio.
Correct.
Even if they weren't a hit, they were on the radio. You couldn't avoid them. KDWB, some of the older. Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, Jeff, they weren't always at the top, or they never hit the top, but they're always there with everybody. They always had a song that you could plug in to enjoy. And, like anything in life, people come and go.
Yeah.
Just like Nash left. Clark had to leave in 2020, and he left for a little bit earlier too, in the 70s. But things come around. At the Hall of Fame, it was good to see. They had both the bass players on there. They had Haydock and Calvert there, and they had their arms around each other. One replaced and one, left.
Yeah.
And they're still in the brotherhood, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, the Hollies definitely have withstood the test of time and represent the boomer era very well.
I want to mention a couple honorable mentions. Jennifer Eccles.
Yeah, that was a good song. Yeah, named after two wives.
Yeah, Alan Clark's wife, Jennifer.
Yep.
And at the time, Graham Nash's wife, Eccles, her last name.
That's right. That's right.
So that's pretty cool. That's a good tidbit. Yeah, that's good. And then King Midas in reverse was a closet favorite of mine. I mean, I really, really liked it because of the imagery, and what they did with the song was different. Where Jennifer Eccles was just bubblegum, basically, a little ode to their wives, like you said. And King Midas in reverse was really good.
I would interject that King Midas in reverse, the reason you like that is you were getting into that period of Rick's life where the Moody Blues were going to take over.
Yeah, I don't know if everybody knows this, but the Moody Blues were so good. They were called progressive. They had the orchestration, which in 1967, it was recorded. Fantastic. And I've been watching reaction videos where you get classically trained musicians talk about it, and they're all blown away by it. And I was blown away by it back, I think it was probably about 1970 where I started to really listen to the Moody Blues, and Days of Future Past, that album. If I was on a desert island, I've said this on other shows, I would take that with me. Of course, I'd have to have electricity to play it. But anyway, that's a different thing. But thanks for mentioning the Moody Blues. And you were big into Little Feat, which I
was.
I liked them, but I wasn't immersed like you were.
Yeah, I was. Little Feat, I think if even based on the songs that I chose, even for the Hollies, for me, the music is a big blues kind of soul vibes, which I think Feat had. Jazz improvisation, Feat had. Back in the days when we were in school, I was listening to Herbie Hancock Headhunters when everybody was like, what the heck is that? And then to your point, back with Alan Clark and Alan Parsons, producer for, Dark Side of the Moon, Alan Parsons, and then, creates iRobot. And so, yeah, the musical confluences are my jam for sure. Creedence played a big role in that early because I was babysitting, listening to parents jamming stereo systems in the late 60s. And that was my musical education.
Well, I tell you what, Jeff, we relate so well because we had a common bond growing up together where we both appreciated music. And as our lives kind of, like a tree, you branch off a little bit. You found the jazz, you found Lowell George and Little Feat, and I went on the Moody Blues run heavy. And it's a wonderful thing. We come back together and we can talk about it and appreciate and enjoy what we're sharing together. And I hope you out there watching and listening that you are getting the same vibe, that you can relate to what we were talking about. And again, go ahead and comment below and let Jeff know what your jams were. What was your jams? And also on a subset, the topic of our show today, the Hollies, want to know about that too. We're open to criticism. We're just talking heads, just reminiscing and with a little research. And if you have anything you want to add to that, we'd love to hear it. And if you got anything good to say, that's cool too. Jeff, I really appreciate you coming on.
Well, it's been an honor, and I would echo Rick's point, which is the whole point of the Boomer Buddies podcast is for you to hear one point of view or two or three of people that are on the show with Rick. But the more important point is, what do you think? What do you remember? What did you experience? What helped change your life? Let Rick and the Boomers family know and respond back. And it's been a pleasure to be on today. Enjoyed it. Look forward to an opportunity perhaps to discuss another topic sometime. And you all have a great day.
I love it. I think we should do Steely Dan at some point. You and
Love
I.
Steely Dan.
Okay.
Fits that jam for me big time.
So what that means is you just committed to me and you will be back.
I will be back. If you get a lot of hate mail, then
I don't think I will. It's just been so much fun. And I should point out that this channel, my Boomer Buddies podcast, we feature old movies, old television shows, history. I really like the history of World War II, Civil War, whatever. And if you're into that, you can catch some episodes on those topics as well. Thanks, Jeff, for coming on. I really appreciate it. I've been looking forward to this forever. My oldest friend, Jeff Bajan, for my Boomer Buddies podcast. I'm Rick Reed. Until next time, we'll see you
around the block.